Hey everybody, this is Joel Hoekstra of Whitesnake, and you're tuned into Side Jams with Bryan Reesman.
Greetings everyone, this is Bryan Reesman, host of Side Jams, where we talk to musicians about their outside passions and their hobbies. And today, I'm speaking with Austin John Winkler, who singer and songwriter. You know him originally as the frontman for Hinder, but he's been doing a lot of solo stuff recently. You've actually put out a lot of singles.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm just kind of getting my feet back in the water, man. Like I was kind of out of it for a good 4 or 5 years with battling addiction and stuff like that. So I'm just testing the waters, man. Slowly getting back into it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I met you in 2008 because I was hired to do the bio for the second Hinder album,
Right.
Take It to the Limit, which is very 80s Sunset Strip rock, so that was appropriate for my childhood. And then we did I saw you guys at Best Buy or Nokia. I think that was called Palladium.
Yeah.
Another bio 2 years later, and then we chatted for this book for the hair metal section. But it's been like over 10 years now, and I know a lot has happened. I mean, obviously, you put out singles like Super Jaded, and there's Carry On, and now you have the sort of the remake or the reboot of Lips of an Angel with a female duet, it's Shaylin.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's been a lot of fun getting back into it, and this re-release, man, it just kind of came at a time where I was just like, yeah, it made all the sense in the world to do it. Working with Brian House, who did the original, and having the TikTok surge on Lips of an Angel, just people either making fun of it or trying to redo it and make it their own and stuff like that. It just kind of made sense to get in there and try to reintroduce this song to a whole new generation of music fans. So
yeah, TikTok is just so bizarre. It's like just anything you can blow up in your leg. It's cool, but at the same time, it's unusual. So basically, the inspiration for this new version was the fact that it suddenly got traction.
Yeah, it got a lot of buzz on TikTok with every girls doing their own, kind of own versions, and it's kind of a timeless song in a way that, like, there's going to be those moments of weakness where you think about, well, maybe what about this person? What about I'm probably should have stayed with this person, or maybe I'll call them and see what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like there's always going to be that what if kind of thing, and I think the song just kind of lends itself to being kind of generational as far as like whenever you eventually get to that point in your life.
Yeah, and I was listening again to Super Jaded, which came out last year, and obviously you've gone on this big journey of getting sober. I remember in 2008, I mean, that wasn't a crazy partying day. I do remember though, right before I was going to leave, I think Cody was like, "Let's do Jaeger Bowl shots." Yay. And then I'm like, now I can't leave and drive the 3 hours home right away.
Yeah,
so then you sober up, go to McDonald's, I got some food, and then a couple hours later I was gone. You've been very open about this stuff, which is great. And I know you're not like a sober coach, but I know you've gone through this journey. You're sharing your story, which I think is important. And also, you, as you said before we got on, you like to help people if you can, offer your advice. I'm curious when all of this kind of craziness started for you. Was that a result of the big success you had early on in the rock and roll lifestyle, or were there other things that came into play?
Well, obviously the success and having accessibility to kind of the whole entire party and controlling the party, and the narrative and stuff like that. Like, yeah, that definitely kind of boosted it. But I mean, I had always been drawn to, something to make me escape, ever since I was a young kid, it's just kind of a way and kind of a fun way to escape. And that's all I do. 20 years apparently. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense. So it really wasn't as much pressing life issues as much as you got caught up in the party.
Well, I mean, there obviously, there's always underlying issues as far as like, I'm not being able to get up and perform and get on stage. Obviously, there's something deeper going on than me just enjoying the party, right?
Yeah.
So there's always underlying issues, I think, whenever you get to a certain point of the party, and you can think you're invincible and you're just going to sit there and you'll be special and you'll be able to stop, or you'll be able to, carry on through it. And, that's not the case, man. Like, it's not the case at all.
Yeah, no, it's tricky, but I've known a couple, and being in the entertainment industry, obviously, and in my life, I've known a couple of people, including a former neighbor, who are functioning alcoholics, and just, you sort of you see how people get caught up in the excuses too. It was Friday night, had a rough week. Don't be a wet blanket, or like they think they've had 2 or 3 drinks, they've had 5.
Right.
A whole litany of things that go on there. But I guess for you, it got very intense, though. I mean, this was going on for years. Then you got to the point, I think a few years ago, you said you got into dialysis.
Oh yeah, no.
How did that all come about? I mean, this obviously was a gradual process.
Yeah, it was obviously over time of me just partying and drinking and tons of opiates. All that stuff is just anything that's bad for your liver. I love opiates. I love drinking, and it all caught up to me probably around 2019. I got to the point where I was so bad that I was only all I needed was like 2 shots of vodka, and then I wouldn't drink anymore. I would just be hallucinating. My brain was, and I was so far gone, and I was completely yellow, and I hadn't looked in the mirror or whatever, and the doctor was like, "Why are you so yellow?" And I had no clue. I had no clue I was yellow. But I had went in. I had went in to the doctor because I felt like something was like my blood was leaking in my brain or whatever, and it was just it was very, very not pretty towards the end. You know what I mean? Like I said, just 2 shots, and that was just to keep me from shaking, and so I could think that I was functioning. But I thought that I had the cast of House of a Thousand Corpses. Have you seen that movie?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, so here, the last month of me using was waking up, having a couple shots of vodka so I could just function, and I would just peek around the room thinking that these guys are going to come out and get me. Like it was full blown, and I would full blown paranoia, and I would tell this story 2 months after I hadn't had a drink in the hospital. Like I would still tell the story thinking it would be true. Like trying to convince my friends and family, like it was crazy. They were in the fucking closet. And that was just, dude, it was just from drinking 2 shots of vodka, and that was only to stop shaking, and then I would just hallucinate the rest of the day. I did that for about a month.
Wow. And I know you were on dialysis, and then so they said that you had liver and kidney failure. Did you have to have any like a liver replacement?
No, I mean I was on the list to get it, and then I was 9 solid months of dialysis. I mean, I was going 4 or 5 hours a day, 4 times a week, and
wow.
Yeah, and I one day I walked in, and the doc was like, "We're going to see if we can take you off dialysis for 2 weeks and see how it goes," because I was generating urine at that time. So they took me off for 2 weeks, and I flew to Nashville and recorded Super Jaded while I still had a catheter sticking out of my chest. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and it's Super Jaded. I mean, you can feel the emotion in that.
Yeah, song. Man. Yeah, and it is a song that I had written that had propelled me back into this business, which is great. Like it made me fall in love with music again, which is something that I had not been a fan of for years.
I mean, you did an EP in 2016,
right?
But I think you liked some of it, but I think you were trying to find yourself again. I mean, Hinder actually kind of changed a lot, even the course of the 4 albums you were on.
Yeah.
The first album had more of a contemporary 2000 sound. The second album was like 80s, kind of threw up current lens, and then the third album was almost like a metal record in spots. And I was like, wow, these guys are really like.
Yeah, that was all over the map, and with the EP that I put out in 2016, man, I was a train wreck. I was a train wreck, just throwing stuff against, just trying to because I'd done rock for so long, I wanted to try and do something a little different, and I go back and listen to it now, and I mean, maybe it was the best of what I could do at the time, but it's definitely not my best work.
Well, you got to go through those periods. I mean, it seems like also you were struggling with a lot of other things.
Oh, absolutely.
What people talk about sort of the moment they decide or they realize they're going to become sober. Was it really one moment, or was it a series of things? Because there's certain cliches that go along with a lot of these issues, but sometimes it's not as cut and dry as all that, it seems like. Depends on the person.
Yeah, it definitely depends on the person and what their availability is to give stuff up or move on and stuff like that. But it was I took the long way. I took the fucking long way to get there. I had probably seven 7 rehabs that I was in, and, 8 sober livings and stuff like that. So it was gradually, obviously, I was something that I wanted to have happen and achieve, because I just kept trying to do it, and it just wasn't taking. And I'll tell you what, man, looking at yourself in the mirror and looking like a Simpsons character will definitely, and having the doctor say you may never get your color back, that will definitely scare you into sobriety. As far as, I mean, that definitely, that played some part, but that was like definitely when I saw myself, I was like, I definitely have hit, this is my bottom, and I fucking hit it. So there's lots of different bottoms. And there's lots of times that I thought that this was the bottom, but until, like, I spent 3 months in the hospital, 24 days in the ICU. Like, that was the biggest sign and the biggest gift. I mean, as much fucking hell as it was a gift for me, It was a gift given to me to be like, you get a second chance, but this is clearly not where you're going.
Yeah, I know someone who had been drinking too much, and they did get yellow, and they did have to get a liver transplant. And then once you're at that point, it's like you can't drink again ever.
Right. Yeah.
And that's sort of a forced sobriety, which, I'm curious, because you've talked about that the doctor said you were like 5 days away from dying, essentially. Mm-hmm. Why is it that you think there are some people such as yourself that can overcome these things, and what is it, and why is there some people who can't? Have you figured out what makes that? Where I've always been curious, because there's some people who just are going to keep going through that cycle over again. There's some people like Rob Halford from Judas Priest went into rehab in '86. He got out. He said he never drank again.
Yeah, man.
He had a lot of personal issues that were leading to that drinking, but he said he just stopped.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, man. I mean, obviously I can sit here and be like determination, and if you really want to do it, you can do it. But I mean, I'll be honest with you. There's times like that I even accepted, like, while I was in dialysis, I was like, this is my life from now on. Like, because it's very rare to get off dialysis and just have a life to where it seamlessly seemed like it didn't happen. But, there was times when I was just like, this is it for me. So I can very much see why some people either get out or they don't. And I think for me, I'm just very lucky, to be honest. I mean, I didn't, that's not much of a life, dude. You know what I mean? Being on dialysis isn't much of a life. So I didn't really have a whole lot of fucking hope going on to it. But I mean, I somehow was able to get through it and do everything the doctors said, and didn't give up on. I mean, I picked up the guitar even though I was so sick and I didn't want to, but I was able to just get something out that I had believed in.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to translate what you're actually feeling, and that was actually feeling in that moment, and I was able to portray it into Super Jid.
Well, yeah, I mean, you do have the music, and that's something that I think is important. I mean, I feel like people should have an artistic outlet regardless of whether they make a living at it or not.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
I think it's very important. Now, you got sober in March of 2019, and then a year later, the pandemic hits, which I'm sure for a lot of people who are addicts was very, very difficult. So how did you get through that whole situation?
Well, like it's terrible. It was terrible to think about. And I had just gotten off dialysis. So I got on dialysis May of 2019, and I just got off of it, like right before the shutdown, like right before it happened. So, I had the music thing going. I had started to exercise and swim and stuff like that, like just those little things that you hear about while you're drinking or partying, and you're like, well, what's that going to do? You're like, it actually really, really, really sets your mind, and it actually really, really helps. So that's something that I religiously do every day, is go first thing in the morning to swim. So that's definitely helped.
Discipline sounds like it helps. I mean, you had been touring a lot too, so there had been some discipline coming from music, even if you were partying. You still had to get on the road and still do things. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, over the years, I was looking at a lot of the lyrics, the recent stuff too. You're obviously super jaded. Well, super jaded also, on top of dealing with, your toxic relationship with substances, you're also dealing with personal relationships too, right? Because there's certain relationships that become problematic.
Well, absolutely, and that's essentially what Super Jade is about. It's about letting go of anything in your life that's letting you be you, that's getting in the way of you being who you actually are and what you're here for. And I had so much shit in my life that was preventing me to get on stage, preventing me from getting in the studio, preventing me to be what I was supposed to be here for. And that particular song is about letting go of all the, people and like I said, substances and just situations, whatever is toxic for you, just letting it go. And those were all the people that, made me who I thought was me. So it was basically letting myself go too. So.
Yeah, I mean, you seem more relaxed. I think when the first time I interviewed you, it was a while for the bio, like 15 years ago now, it's going back. But you were a little more wary of the press. Like, I was asking you a couple of questions. You're like, reporter questions. I'm like, no, I'm writing the bio for you. I could see it too. You guys probably got people prying into your lives in certain ways at that point.
Yeah, for sure. And we definitely had to. We learned lessons the hard way of who you let in your lives too. So it's definitely difficult when you get to that level of success.
Well, I remember on the tour bus, there was a sign right on the wall for the bunk beds that said, no cell phones or cameras beyond this point. And I'm like, huh.
Yeah, we try to keep it pretty private on the bus, but you live and learn too. So there's a reason why that sign was there, right?
Well, yeah, because I know, because the boys get in trouble, and then on top of that, like, people post stuff on social media, which is definitely a change in rock and roll. When I was backstage at the Best Buy / Pavilion / whatever they want, Palladium, whatever they call it now. You guys definitely wanted to kind of keep the party going. I felt like by the 2000s, a lot of that era was gone, and I felt like you were trying to kind of keep it.
We definitely were, man. I mean, we were definitely the band to try and bring that big, the big party back to rock and roll, and in a lot of ways we achieved that. I promise you that.
Well, I mean, and in the past years, man, let's look at some of the other lyrics here too, because I mean, Carry On, you kind of talk about you're not recognizing yourself in the mirror. You talk American Dreams. You do talk about, like, you've talked about your love of that pursuit of the American dream. And I guess we've never really ever gotten over the gold rush. It's one of the things we don't seem to have. The Wild West and the gold rush are two things that and Puritanism, we never seem to have gotten over. Like, it just sort of always exists there. And at the same time, though, you find yourself chasing things that aren't always there. Like, for you now, when you're looking at your art and looking at your life, how has your perspective changed over the Austin I met, like, back in 2008?
Well, I mean, it's definitely changed as far as like what's important to me now. I mean, obviously, world domination back in 2008 was the main goal, and for me, like, it's now kind of about actually writing about how how I survive this fucked up world, and this it's a crazy world we live in, man. So if I can write a song now that at least a few people can relate to, then I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing here for. And I mean, let's face it, Get Stoned was a party rock song. It had a specific audience in mind, and stuff like that. So now I'm just kind of really trying to dig into who I am now, and trying to translate that the best I can.
So, like, now when you meet people or you have friends who might be struggling with certain addiction issues, or you want to give advice, like, what are the kind of things do you talk about, and also how do you sort of explain it in a way where it's like a lot? I mean, just anytime you're dealing with any sort of issues, there's always sort of the same cliches that come up, right? Are there ways that you can dress it up in a different way to make people think differently about what they're grappling with?
Oh, as far as, like, if they have addiction issues, man, it's being so deep in it. All I can do is say that whenever you're dealing with, like, the lowest of the low, and, like, because I mean, I've had more money in my fucking bank account than I had ever dreamed of, and I've been on the floor of my house, just the most miserable I've ever been before, and that's what that I mean. It takes away from it takes away from your life whenever you whenever you use and stuff like that. So whenever you use to that extent, I mean, I my situation was insanely worse, and I'm not saying that's why I got better. I'm saying that I didn't have a choice. Like, if I'm going to give some advice to people, it would be that you're stealing days and minutes and time away from who you are and who you're supposed to be and who you're supposed to like be here for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way you can put it, is that you're fucking yourself over, and either you're going to make it through it or you're not. And I was lucky and got through it. And I mean, it's a struggle though. You struggle every day with it. Like,
so do you feel like in some ways you're starting over?
Oh, I feel like in a lot of ways I'm starting over. I mean, I didn't have, I mean, Hinder was Hinder. I didn't have my own personal social media. I didn't have an agenda. Like, that was who I was at the time, and that's it. And once I stepped away from that, there's not a whole lot of people that know the name Austin John Winkler, but they fucking know Hinder, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
in a way, I am starting over, and it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's going to be a long road, but I'm here for it.
Just very quickly, I mean, you mentioned exercise. Like, what kind of exercises do you do, and how has that helped you with your singing as well?
Oh man, honestly, I love to run and swim, but lately I've just been swimming every day, and I do, man. I swim a mile every day, and then I go and sit in the sauna for 20 minutes, and I feel so wasted after I get out of the sauna after that 20 minutes and swimming, and you're as high as you can be. So that's all I do. That's all I do these days, is just try to keep it simple and get it done, and try to face this world.
Are there any other things that you do that for recreation, or things that just make you happy beyond music?
Man, there's not a whole lot, man. I like movies, and I like to escape through a good horror film, but
Yeah.
There are far and few between these days. I'm struggling to find. I like to pull some inspiration from movies too, if the line hits me right or something like that. So I spend a lot of time watching movies.
You mentioned MusiCares, because
Yeah.
I'm a Grammy voting member for almost 20 years, so I thought that was cool. I guess they actually helped you out a bit during this whole period.
MusiCares definitely is an amazing program that helped me out when I first started to try to get sober. They took care of me, and they put me up and helped me get like a whole 3 months of treatment, and
Really?
put me where I needed to be and stuff like that. Yeah, that MusiCares is definitely an amazing program that if anybody is struggling, any musician struggling, I would reach out to them, because they will definitely do all they can to help you.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. It was fun to catch up with you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, man. Good talking to you again, man.